Hello, this is Ginny Brant with Unleash Your God-Given Healing with Lifestyle Changes. Today we're going to look at 6 reasons I avoid GMO or genetically modified organism foods. Before my cancer journey, I knew nothing about genetically modified organisms or GMO foods. I certainly didn't realize I was eating them daily. The World Health Organization, the WHO, defines them as organisms in which the genetic material, or DNA, has been altered in such a way that does not occur naturally. Now, some GMO foods may be perfectly fine, such as taking an apple and altering it within its family to be sweeter or tartar. But according to Dr. Russell Blaylock, some GMO crops are genetically altered to resist insects, produce higher levels of nutrients, and also resist the toxicity of herbicides such as glyphosate. My video on what you need to know about glyphosate and my video on 6 ways to reduce your exposure to glyphosate will be referenced in the show notes below. This controversial herbicide, as you will see in these videos, has conflicting evidence, with some seeing it as the superhero and some seeing it as a villain. Only you can decide. Now, these stronger herbicides, such as glyphosate, are quite effective at killing weeds, but they have a more toxic residue, which is passed on to us when we eat these foods, and in some crops, more than others. Dr. Blaylock shows in a video that when we eat these foods, which have been heavily sprayed with glyphosate, it's like serving your children a bowl of cereal with milk and spraying a little bit of poison on each bowl. Something to think about. So here are 6 reasons I avoid GMO foods. Number 1, as I just mentioned, some have a high pesticide residue and some may not. When a crop is genetically altered to withstand multiple sprayings of an herbicide and everything around that crop dies, except for that crop, we have a problem. This is why GMO crops, which are altered to withstand these multiple sprayings with toxic chemicals, may survive, but they pass a pesticide residue, a high pesticide residue, on to us. GMO crops, which are genetically altered to be sweeter or tartar, as I mentioned, and stay within that family or genome for the plant family, they may have no more pesticides than the average sprayed crop. Number 2, you can identify a GMO crop by the price lookup or PLU number on the label. The PLU codes are 4-digit numbers that identify different types of produce. If the number begins with a 4, such as 4011, then this is a standard banana conventionally grown. And you can see on here the 4011. Here's that banana, this group of bananas here, okay? Now, the number 9 prefix added to a PLU tells us that item is organic. So the code 94011 is the code for an organic yellow banana. Then a number 8 prefix added to the PLU signifies that a crop is genetically engineered in some way. So the code 84011 tells us that the yellow banana is genetically engineered in some way. Number 3, the USDA now requires grocery packaged foods to label GMO products. Now, the label might say BE or bioengineered or contains a bioengineered food ingredient. Non-GMO foods are foods that have not gone through any sort of genetic modification. It's certainly a relief for me to see a packaged food with non-GMO on the box. It lets me know that no ingredients in that packaged food have been genetically altered. Of course, I prefer to see organic instead, but it is a comfort to know that genetically modified foods have not been used in the packaged food. So we can look at that PLU on produce, but when a packaged food, we need to look on the box. Frankly, I don't know how many companies are actually complying with this new regulation, but now that RFK Jr. is at the helm, I'm sure this will be enforced. People have a right to know what they are eating. Amen. I hope you agree with me on that. Number 4, these are the main GMO crops that we must be aware of. The number 1, soybeans. A large percentage, 90% of soybeans in our country are GMO. This is significant because soybeans are used in many processed foods. Organic soybeans, on the other hand, are fine. Then there's corn, another large percentage, 90% of corn are GMO. And corn is also used in many processed foods and in animal feed for cattle, hogs, and poultry. Organic corn is fine, and I use organic corn in many recipes. Then there's sugar beets. These root plants contain high levels of sucrose and are second to sugarcane as a major source of sugar. If an ingredient says sugar beets, it's probably GMO because 95% of sugar beets in the United States are GMO. If a processed food contains sugarcane, then it may contain some pesticides, but it's not generally GMO. Then there's canola, and you might say, but I don't eat canola. But canola oil is found in many processed foods, such as chips, cereals, breads, snack bars, etc. And then there's cotton. Again, we don't eat cotton, but we do wear it a lot. And we consume it as cottonseed oil, which is found again in many processed foods, including chips and margarine. All right, next on the list is alfalfa. But we don't eat alfalfa, do we? Well, in a way we do. Alfalfa is a major crop used in livestock feed along with corn. Have you ever heard the phrase, because I've said it many times, you are what you eat eats? It's something to think about. When you eat meat or drink milk from a cow, fed feed made from GMO alfalfa or corn, some of that is passed on to us. So, in a way, we do eat alfalfa indirectly. Papayas, 90% of these grown in Hawaii are GMO, but at least we have some protection with the rind as most of the pesticides and herbicides collect in the rind. And then there's potatoes. 5 potato varieties are GMO, including white russet, very popular in the United States, Atlantic, russet Burbank, and range russet. The potato is the most frequently consumed vegetable in the United States, and white russet, as I just mentioned, is the most common. These GMO potatoes are genetically engineered to reduce browning and bruising and to reduce a naturally occurring chemical called asparagine. To find out if your potato is GMO, simply check the PLU code. It's unknown whether genetically modifying in this way is harmful or not. And then there's zucchini and yellow squash. These are some of my favorite vegetables, but many are GMO, so I opt for organic and even grow some of them in my own backyard. And last but not least are these animal derivatives, recombinant bovine growth hormone called RBGH, which is used to increase milk production in cows. It's widely used in the U.S., although this is banned in the European Union, in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Canada. It is made in a lab using genetic technology. In addition, products such as eggs, meat, and milk are considered high risk simply because GMOs are usually found in animal feed. Again, remember this, you are what you eats. All right, number 5. GMO ingredients, unfortunately, are found in 75% of our foods. I will never forget the day I went through my pantry like a mad woman, throwing most of it out the door. Why? Because I looked at each item, read the labels, and found that most of them contained GMO ingredients. I was horrified. Look for things such as corn oil, cornmeal, cornstarch, corn syrup, hominy, polenta, canola oil, cottonseed oil, sugar beets, soybean oil, soy protein, soy lecithin, and soy milk, just to name a few. Unfortunately, many processed and packaged foods contain ingredients derived from GMO crops like corn, soy, canola, and sugar beets. Number 6, the research on GMO foods is simply conflicting. Some scientists claim that GMO foods, which are heavily sprayed with pesticides, including glyphosate, are harmless because the herbicides and pesticides dissolve in the soil and do not accumulate in the human body. But my urine tests indicate otherwise, as high levels of several pesticides, including glyphosate, were found in my body at unbelievable levels. Research by the CDC shows that 80% of adults and children show levels of pesticides in their urine as well. Now, I'm just a case study, not research, but the CDC research is very alarming. However, I must confess, I choose not to succumb to research that has been paid for by the companies that profit from what the research says. So to be fair, as I mentioned before, making an apple sweeter or tartar may not be an issue. We simply don't know. But the full impact of GMO foods on human health, especially with these high pesticide residues, is not known. Now, there is a study called the Seralini study done by French and Italian well-respected researchers and published in the Food and Chemical Toxicology Journal in 2012, which found that death rates were 5 times higher among male animals fed GMO corn and 6 times higher among GMO-fed females. On top of that, both male and female animals rapidly developed massive cancer tumors. Although big agriculture companies have debunked this research and put pressure on this journal and caused the editor to retract the research article, more and more scientists, doctors, and researchers are concerned. A later study done in 2014, in which Seralini was involved, also showed alarming results in rats over a 2-year period, suggesting that more research certainly needs to be done. Well, now you know why I eat organic food as much as possible and why I avoid most GMO foods, especially those which have been genetically engineered to withstand heavy spraying with glyphosate and other pesticides. Again, the straw that broke this camel's back was when my urine results showed both high levels of glyphosate and the Agent Orange pesticide 2,4-D. My husband and I will never forget the day that I went through, as I mentioned, went through my pantry like a mad woman, throwing everything out in a rage. Reading the labels on the packaged foods forced me to realize that I was mainly eating GMO foods. I was angry at the EPA, at the Department of Agriculture, and at the FDA, I felt betrayed that they weren't protecting me, the consumer. And now that I have grandchildren, I'm even more enraged. But in the garbage, these God move over or Frankenfoods went. And now my pantry contains much healthier options. What about you? Have you read the labels on the foods in your pantry and the PLU labels on your produce? I have never been more excited about the confirmation of RFK Jr. as head of the Department of Health and Human Services. Big companies won't like what he's doing to make our food and personal care products safer. But I, for one, cheer him on, and I can't be more thankful that he is where he is. We need to pray for him on a daily basis because he's going up against some of the biggest companies that manufacture food, grow food, and make our personal care products. I hope this information has been helpful for you. I hope that you will subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video, share it, and click the notification bell so that you will know when I post new information. Until next time, here's to having a healthy pantry. Here's to being informed so that you can choose healthy foods, the kind of foods that God Himself made that have not been altered. Because let me tell you, God always knows best, and He knows what we need because He loves us so much. Until next time, here's to your good health, and may God bless.